New York raises income taxes on super wealthy, raising concerns among corporations. A Morning Brew story. Last week, lawmakers passed a budget that raised the personal income tax on individuals for over $1 million and introduces two new brackets of those making more than $5 million and $25 million. Can you imagine you have a tax bracket for people making over $25 million a year? The changes mean that the wealthiest New York City residents will face the highest combined local and state personal income rate in the country, surpassing California. New York officially passed California. Interesting. So 250 business executives have sent a letter to state lawmakers arguing that the higher tax would jeopardize New York's recovery from the economic crisis inflicted by COVID-19 by sending high net worth people fleeing. Meanwhile, just 3 hours south of the JetBlue flight, Miami Twitter-in-chief Mayor Suarez is welcoming New York's wealthy with a promise of zero state income taxes and carbon reservation, which makes New York City leaders, including mayoral candidates Andrew Yang and Ray McGuire, anxious that that tax hike could lead to a 1970-esque corporate exodus when the city lost half of its Fortune 500 companies.
And then keep going to the next story.
Very interesting. New York City wealthiest look to exit as the state readies hefty tax increase. That's a CNBS story. It's different stories. New York's top business leaders are gearing up for potential mass exodus as Como state lawmakers prepare to raise their taxes, with the state budget set to increase the personal income tax on the wealthiest New Yorkers. Okay, we covered that. Wealthy business leaders who have historically resisted moving at least some of their resources to Florida or other less tax state explained that they are now seriously considering as working from homes becomes the norm, allowing more flexibility. Florida does not have personal. Okay, so similar story, two different articles. By the way, you know who just moved to Florida, Palm Beach, and bought an $83 million home?
Larry Ellison?
Larry Ellison just bought an $83 million home
I think he's tearing it down or
Palm
something
Beach.
like that.
And Donald Trump Jr. and Kimberly got a place in Jupiter for $9.6 million. They sold their house, I think, in Connecticut.
Are they married or just
Jupiter.
dating?
They're not married.
I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
They're not
But I
married.
think they're just dating. Yeah. Seriously dating, though. But go ahead. What do you think about New York? Any different opinions? We've been following
this story. This is not a new story. I just love, shout out to
Suarez.
my guy, Mayor Francis Suarez. We hung out with him the other day. We were at the event. This was literally 1 week ago, I believe. And I just love how all roads lead to Florida, and specifically Miami. I love how he has now taken the new moniker, the tweeter-in-chief, Francis Suarez. So how can I help? Come on down to Florida. The weather's fine. By the way, some people still don't know that Valuetainment is in Florida. I get that. Where do you go?
Well, today video went out saying why I moved to Florida. I just went out with a video
really?
finally this morning.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, about time.
Yeah, finally.
So
today. But go
we're in
ahead.
Florida, and it's just come on down, New York.
You know, the thing that just annoys me is just the level of unsophistication and uncreativity that these politicians have in these states. I mean, you got to make a conscious decision. I'm going to live in New York and I'm going to live in California. I'm just going to have to deal with it, right? There's better alternatives. And you look at a state like Florida and Texas that has no state income tax, and they're thriving. They are taxing less, and it's working. And these bozos just think we'll just keep adding taxes, and the lowest hanging fruit is the rich people. It's the corporations. It's people making $25 million or more. So that's the easy target. You go against the extra, few billion that you pump into the general economy, and it doesn't do anything. Because the other story attached to this is how they're giving away $13,000 to undocumented immigrants or something in New York as well, which is staggering and unbelievable.
Kai, do you have that story in here? Because
It's
that's
right
the story
above
I'd
that.
like to go to.
Yeah. Right above that story.
Which page is it on?
Same page, though. You just read those
Same.
two stories.
Okay, there it is,
6.
page 6. Okay, let's go into that as well because they all go together. $2.1 billion for undocumented workers signals New York's progressive shift. This is a New York Times story, which is the most progressive newspaper out there, saying progressive shift. After sweeping move by lawmakers this week, New York will now offer one-time payments of up to $15,600 to undocumented immigrants who lost work during the pandemic. The effort, a $2.1 billion fund in the state budget, is by far the biggest of its kind in the country, and a sign that the state's shift towards policies championed by progressive Democrats, such as AOC in the state of New York. Republicans instantly criticized the measure as out of touch at a time when many other New Yorkers were still struggling, while some Democrats from swing districts upstate and on Long Island said privately that a publicly funded rescue program for people are not in the country legally would be wielded as a against them cudgel against them in future elections. New York's fund dwarfs a similar relief program enacted in California, where officials set up a $75 million cash assistance program last year and gave undocumented immigrants a $500 one-time payment on a first-come, first-served basis. This is $15,600.
Yeah.
They probably won't tax them either.
If you're okay, look.
Adam, do you support this?
No, hell no.
Why
this
not?
is ridiculous.
It's
This is
unfair.
absurd. Look, this is undocumented immigrants. These aren't for,
Okay.
so if you're going to, If you're going to give a $500 payment to, somebody, or a stimulus to your fellow Americans, cool, I get it. $15,000 freaking dollars to undocumented
For people that don't pay taxes.
How does that even? How is that even a good idea? I would love to get the other end of the spectrum.
It's unfair. They lost their jobs. How come you don't care?
They're not
about
American
them?
citizens. What are we talking about here? Okay.
Adam, you sound like a conservative. You sound like Ted Cruz right now. Please watch your language.
I sound like a reasonable person.
Okay.
I sound like a
Which is
reasonable
why
person.
it's so shocking.
Oh, Zenner, you don't want to. You don't want to let the cat out the bag,
kidding.
Zenner. This guy flip flops more than a guy on a vacation. So, it's just absurd. It's just absurd. And sometimes, to my fellow Democrats out there, sometimes you need some tough love. Just like, if someone's a family member, they need some tough love. This is freaking absurd. How does someone even justify this to the AOCs out there, to de Blasio's out there, whoever the hell's running the show in New York City?
Like, listen,
this is ridiculous.
The 1974 exodus of what happened with Fortune 500 companies.
50% of them.
Like, listen, you realize you have documentation to know what happened in the 1970s when the massive exodus took place. How do you not see trends, New York? How do you not see it? How do you not see that is taking place?
Rewarding people for doing nothing is one of the stupidest things you can possibly do as a government. And it is hurting businesses huge. Like in California, I'll give you an example. You go to restaurants that are finally able to open again. You know what their biggest problem is? Wait staff, support staff. They can't find people because they cannot rehire the people that used to work there because they're making more money on unemployment. It doesn't make sense for them to go back to work. So good restaurants then have to go to a shrinking pool to try to find qualified applicants that can handle that. They have to retrain them. They have to pay. First, they have to find people that probably don't even have experience as waiters. And you see that difference. You talk to restaurant owners. It's a huge, huge problem. This is just it's so stupid. It almost makes you wonder why Democrats didn't think of it sooner, right?
It's almost like a story you would see in The Onion, and you're like, oh, okay, hilarious.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not.
$15,000, buddy. $15,000, and it's normal today.
And it's untaxed too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they won't.
Can you imagine that? You know what? Like some people are gonna be like, take away my green card, give me the money. I'll be illegal. Here.
I feel
Just
like
give me the
they're gonna justify that by saying with payments up to $15,000, meaning they might not get the whole thing. They might qualify for $1,000.
AOC is celebrating right now. AOC is sitting there saying, we are making New York more progressive.
Be AOC for a second. Flip the script. You're AOC.
Yep.
Why does this make sense?
Why does this make sense?
So, some of the things that you said is you like to research the other side just to kind of get different.
This is 100% socialistic philosophy.
Okay.
This is all we're going to take care of you. This is what comes after this is when you take care of undocumented immigrants. Next comes if they live here and they pay taxes, they ought to be able to vote as well. I mean, you're leading to the direction of wanting to allow undocumented immigrants to be able to vote. And once that happens, forget about anybody winning on the right if that takes place.
Yeah, but then nobody's winning on the right in New York anyway. So why is that such
I don't know. I think we're too quick to think that America's going to be the greatest country in the world forever. Like this money's going to be here forever and we can spend it because money's going to be here forever. Listen, you are not rich forever. Mm-hmm. You know how people retire and they're sitting there on the money and they're like, oh, I got my retirement $1 million. How old are you? 65. Dude, you're going to live to 90.
Yeah.
$1 million at 65, 25. No. 25 years. Say you get 3% interest on your $1 million. That's $30,000. Say Social Security sends you another $20,000. That's $50,000. You going to be able to afford that for the next 25 years? And your lifestyle's been $150? No. You need $4 or $5 million. So people think money supply and success lasts forever. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. New York is getting cocky. New York is getting arrogant. New York is thinking nobody will leave them because it's New York City, the financial capital of the world. They forget that many other financial capitals of the world lost their reputation due to exact kind of policies that New York is doing.
But they got to be reading what's going on in the news. They got to be saying what's going on. They're already leaving.
Adam,
it's not like, well, maybe we'll leave. They've already left.
How do you reason with unreasonable human beings?
But Cuomo's the type of person that seems reasonable.
Yeah, but
as
Cuomo,
much as
the only thing Cuomo's thinking about right now is to make sure he doesn't get impeached. What do you think Cuomo's thinking about? Are you serious? Cuomo wakes up every day with somebody new coming out and saying he kissed me on the cheek. He did this. He did that. Every day he's got a different story coming out.
I haven't heard many stories in the last few weeks.
Well, maybe they're happy because this passed. Maybe that's why you kind of got silenced.
By the people around him say the exact same thing, that he's only governing to save himself. I mean, that's it. That's his main motivation most of the time anyway, especially now.
You're not more powerful than the tribe of Democrats and everybody on the socialist side. You are not more powerful than them. You just are not. It's that straight up. You think you are, you're not. No matter how many lives lives you did and everybody loved you, Cuomo. No, it's not how this thing works. So if you enjoyed this little short segment from the podcast that we did, here's another short segment to watch. Or if you want to see the entire podcast, click over here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.